Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from SimpleProgrammer.com. So I got this question about architects. I don't think I've really talked too much about being an architect. I think I did this video on going from developer to architect, maybe, but not architect specifically. So it says, "Hi John, thank you so much for all the much needed advice you give on your YouTube channel. Have been watching most of your vids for a while now, and I must admit that I've grown tremendous amount as a person and professionally, so much so that I have recently been promoted to software architect at my company." Cool, that's awesome. John, I would like to ask, maybe you can make a video about it or link to me one that you've already made. Seeing that I've just been promoted to architect, what are the things as an architect that I should know, things to be aware of when designing and architecting systems, courses, resources, general advice? You have become a mentor to me, someone I look up to and admire. Keep up the great work. You're definitely changing lives. You changed mine. I said it once to you before, and I'm going to say it again. Your channel is an Easter egg on YouTube. Regards, Ronaldo. Well, thanks, Ronaldo. I appreciate that. That's cool. I'm really glad. I mean, congratulations on getting the architect role, and I'm glad that I've been able to help you. You know, that's why I created this channel. So, as far as being an architect, kind of advice here. So, I think, you know, this is a tough one. I've been in this role, you know, obviously it's been a while, but I've been in this role before, and it's a hard role to be in because it's not. People have different definitions of what does it mean to be an architect on a project, and what should you do, and you kind of have to balance being in the code too much, in my opinion, with being too much ivory tower, you know, tell people how it is, and right, because you got to be pragmatic at the same time as you have to, you know, be you got to push people. You got to like do more than just write code as well. So it's really tough. I think it's a tough position to be in as far as like designing and architecting systems. You know, I think the best advice that I would give you really is that you need to make sure that the systems that you design and that you architect, that you start off simple, right? Sometimes people get too much into, you know, the whole point of this, right, simple programmer is making the complex simple. So keep it simple. Don't get too complicated. Don't like get too crazy with your ideas, and don't over design. A lot of architects, especially starting out, I think there's this real temptation to like over design, to come up with these really robust systems instead of solving the problem as elegantly and as simply as possible. Because that's really what you want to do, is you want to, you know, use as little bit of construction material as possible, you know, make it as modern, as sleek as possible without all the overhead, because you can't ever anticipate exactly how things are going to change or how things are going to be used. And when you over architect things, that's when, you know, you get these big scope creeps and you run into problems with developers and stuff. So my first advice would be to keep things as simple as possible. Don't over architect. You can always redesign later. You know, you're going to learn from the design, especially as it's used, and you can always modify the design. A lot of times people are afraid to throw out a design. So I'd rather see kind of two designs that get thrown away before the final one, where you even rewrite the code, than one really big design that's trying to be extremely robust, that is just a huge beast that never actually gets implemented, right? It's better, always consider that you're going to throw away the first one away. And, you know, that takes pressure off of you. It takes pressure off the developers implementing it. Sometimes the project managers don't like that, but as long as you're designing simply, then you have that flexibility or ability to do that. Don't box yourself in by making too complicated of a design. So that's the first thing I would really say about being an architect. The second thing is, I would say that, again, I talked about this a little bit, but you got to be in the code to some degree. I think some architects, they say, okay, well, I'm an architect now, and they'll either do one of two things. They'll either like not really do the architect role. They're still trying to like code up everything themselves, and you can't do that because you won't be using your abilities most effectively, right? And then the other thing is sometimes they'll say, well, okay, I'm an architect now, so I don't write code. Like I'll just design the systems and you guys write the code. And you can't do that either. You got to be sort of part of the development team. You can't really, you got to be, you don't want to draw a big line there where, all the developers say, oh, they ignore your design, or they're fighting you because they feel like you're sort of, making that distance between them. So you got to be part of it, but you can't be the sole person writing this code. So a lot of times, I think a good architect will sort of write the skeleton or tricky parts of the code, or write a demo, like a prototype of the architecture, the design of the system, and show how it could be done. And maybe work on some component. They own some piece of it, while they're maybe they're working on 10%, and they're having the other developers work on 90% of it. But this keeps them in line with reality, because sometimes you can come up with these crazy architectures that aren't actually gonna. No one's ever going to be able to really implement that. It's not going to work out. So you want to make sure that you're on the ground. You're still level. You're still part of the development team to some degree, so that you are understanding what they're working on and their concerns. But at the same time, you can't just be heads down writing code. So it's a difficult balance for sure. But yeah, I think those are really the main things. If you keep it simple, don't over design, and you keep that balance between doing development and architecture, you're gonna be successful. The other thing I would say, one last thing I would say is, obviously keep reading, keep learning. Read, make sure that you're familiar with the things like the design patterns. Get the book if you haven't. Obviously, most architects have read, the Gang of Four design patterns. You should be familiar with all of them. You don't need to implement them all the time, but you should be familiar. The other thing is you should be familiar with, like enterprise integration patterns. It's another good book. Like you got to start looking at some of these architecture type of books, so that you can really have this stuff. You should know all of these kind of patterns that are going to be important, because you're going to see them more. But yeah, keep reading. Keep that education up. And congratulations, this is great. I'm very happy that you've been able to kind of achieve this milestone in your career, and that I've been able to help you in some way to do that. But yeah, it's a challenge, and we'll see. Some people also don't like it, because some people just like to be in the code, and so you'll have to see what happens. With you. I know a lot of times when I got in architecture positions, it was sort of bittersweet, because I wanted to be writing code. I didn't, I like designing the system, so it was a challenge to keep my hands out of the code so much as I wanted. At least, for me, that was the biggest challenge with being in architect type of positions. But you can have a lot of impact there, and it's definitely a good career move. So, congratulations. And yeah, that's it. So if you like this channel, subscribe. I'll talk to you next time.